90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. This is part 2 of our special program on lawyer wellness, focusing on prevention and support for lawyers, their families, law students, clients, anyone who has some contact with the legal community. Our 2 special guests are Beth Eckhardt. She is a licensed community social worker, has a PhD in clinical social work, and she's the director of the Nassau County Bar Association Lawyer Assistance Program. She also has a private practice in psychotherapy in East Northport. Our other guest is attorney Annabel Bazante, and she concentrates in estates, wills, trust, elder law, and Medicaid planning. She is a volunteer attorney on the Lawyer Assistance Committee, both at the Nassau County level and the New York State Bar. And if you're not in Nassau County, you have similar resources for lawyers and their families around the state and around the country. Beth and Annabel, welcome back to Law You Should Know, and thank you for your ideas and support for lawyers and their families who may have issues concerning the stress of practice. And if you missed the first show, as well as this show, are available as podcast at nccradio.org. So is there a way a lawyer or their family member or coworker can give themselves a checkup to see if they are okay and maybe they need to slow down or take advantage of some of the resources and support that you offer? Sometimes a lawyer can ask themselves if their clients, associates, or family notices some change in their behavior or they don't seem like themselves. Beth?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think our family members and our colleagues are often see things in us before we see it in ourselves. So paying attention to if you're hearing people say often, "Are you okay? You seem to be off." What's going on is a really important first step.
And what about memory loss or inability to concentrate? If a lawyer is feeling that, or a law student, is that another sign, Beth?
Yeah, absolutely. When we have foggy brain, when we have difficulty concentrating, when we're overthinking, when we can't focus, when we can't make decisions, these are all signs that we're on overload of some kind.
And what about emotionally? If perhaps they're either angry or sad or concerned?
If you find yourself feeling anything in excess of what you typically feel. Some people are more emotional than others. That's totally fine. I cry all the time. If I'm watching a commercial, I'll cry. But if I notice that I'm crying more often, or I'm crying in situations where I wouldn't otherwise, or if I'm irritable and angry, then those would be signs that there's something going on.
And another one on the list, the Are You OK list that you published in the Nassau Lawyer, the publication Nassau County Bar Association, is that if they've missed appointments or court appearances or failed to return phone calls or reply to phone calls or letters or let's say motions, are those big warning signs too?
Yeah, oftentimes lawyers find themselves struggling with keeping up with calls. They might find that they go into work late, that they shut their phone off, that they're not checking and responding to emails. They're getting complaints. I think, Annabelle, you can probably speak to this also.
Yeah, so I think 2 other things that are really important is, do you find that you're having trouble getting out of bed in the morning, even after having gone to sleep or gone to bed at a good time? If you're depressed and hesitant and anxious about beginning your day, that could be a warning sign. And the other thing is, it may seem extreme, but it's really not. Are you having suicidal thoughts? I've heard of several suicides myself within the past couple of months, and it's an unfortunate, tragic, permanent solution to what's almost always could be a temporary problem.
And these things, unfortunately, are normal, and you and the resources of the Bar Association and the Lawyers Assistance Committee in Nassau County, statewide, and around the country can help lawyers respond to these changes.
Absolutely.
So they are not alone. Many lawyers have been through this, unfortunately, but you can help them get to a better place, give them some breathing room, perhaps extend deadlines. There are all kinds of tools that you have in your toolbox.
Yeah, once we hear from an attorney, a loved one, and our services are for lawyers, law students, judges, and their immediate family members. Once they come to us, there's a myriad of ways that we can help, including peer support with people like Annabel, who are on our Lawyer Assistance Committee, who volunteer their time to help other attorneys. And then myself, I can provide professional support, and we have a host of resources in the community to provide additional support.
And again, it's all confidential, and you can help them to relieve the pressure, even at their job, so to speak. I'm sorry, go ahead, Annabel.
Yes, I was going to also say that when people are really feeling boxed in and bad about themselves and maybe having suicidal thoughts, they might not want to come to the Bar Association or meet with somebody over a cup of coffee. We have a confidential hotline number that Beth will repeat perhaps, that you can make a phone call and you can reach somebody. If not, you leave a message, we'll call you back, and you can talk through your problem in an anonymous way. Sometimes that's a necessary first step for people who are really not feeling right.
And a person can call on someone else's behalf, a coworker, an employer, a client, a child, a parent. Someone else can contact you and explain the situation, and you'll try to give them some advice and help.
Absolutely. We get calls all the time from family members, from colleagues, from people who are concerned about people they know who are attorneys who are struggling.
One response that we might have is if a family member calls because their loved one is drinking too much and the alcohol is really interfering negatively with their life, we may suggest that they give Al-Anon a try. It's a 12-step program for people who love somebody who ought to be or is in recovery.
And the Bar Association, and again, around the country, you have similar programs for lawyers themselves. Just tell us about some of those programs that they can attend without cost or, let's say, obligation.
So just to reiterate, there are programs across the country. There are lawyer assistance programs in every state, but most of the local bar associations you can reach out to, and they should be able to put you in touch with someone who can help. At the Nassau County Bar Association, we have a host of services. We definitely provide an individual opportunity to speak with me and determine whether additional care is needed, whether it's peer support. Sometimes I just talk to people once or twice, and then I don't talk to them again. They just need a little bit of a sounding board. So there's a host of reasons why people call and ways that we can help.
And just give out your contact info again, and we'll repeat it later in the program.
So the phone number to call is 516-512-2618. And the website where you can leave an email, and also there's additional contact information, is lap@nassaubar.org. And LAP is for the Lawyer Assistance Program.
I know that the both of you have worked on many diversion and monitoring cases, and perhaps you could offer an example of that other lawyers or the families or employees can relate to. Annabel? Yeah.
Well, one woman who I helped had come to us voluntarily. She had been, she was disbarred, and she wanted to regain her status as an attorney. And so what I did was offer her peer support and make sure that she was seeing her mental health professional on a regular basis. And I also helped her prepare her application for readmittance and would talk to her about her meetings with her attorney in that regard.
And before that even happens, when let's say there's a grievance that hasn't been resolved, or a threat of a grievance by a client, by another attorney, by the court, your committee can also help at that point to slow things down, perhaps to provide intervention support to keep that from happening.
That's absolutely true. And in fact, there was a time when I helped a law student who was concerned about how she was going to complete certain parts of the application to be admitted to the bar, and we were able to help her and monitor her and provide a structured process for her to then later prove to the committee that she was really working hard on changing and being a better candidate for admission.
And I just want to reiterate that most of these situations have occurred before, and people can find a support group, can find other resources to get them through this storm.
Absolutely can.
Okay, I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking about the Lawyers Assistance Committee and the Lawyers Assistance Program of the Nassau County Bar Association and beyond. Our guests are Beth Eckhardt. She's a licensed community social worker. She has a PhD in clinical social work. She's also the director of the Nassau County Bar Association Lawyers Assistance Program and has a private psychotherapy practice in East Meadow. We also are with Annabel Bazante. She's an attorney concentrating in estates, wills, trusts, elder law, and Medicaid planning. And she's also been very active as a volunteer in the Lawyers Assistance Committee in Nassau County on the New York State level. And you're listening to Law You Should Know. If you missed any portion of today's program or a prior program on lawyer wellness, just go to nccradio.org for the podcast. Who is at risk? Lawyers also have a higher risk of, let's say, depression and suicide and maybe experiencing other mental health issues. Is there a reason for that, Beth? And regardless of that, you're here to provide support.
Right. So, when I first started in this profession, there was very little real evidence about the degree of suffering among attorneys. But since then, there's been a lot of studies that have been conducted with high numbers of lawyers to confirm, in fact, that lawyers struggle with depression, anxiety, problem drinking, substance use, ADHD, and suicide in larger rates than the general population. But the Lawyer Assistance Program, the Lawyer Assistance Committee, is at the Bar Association to provide support for all of these different issues.
And certain jobs in the legal field can be high stressed, and sometimes a person needs to perhaps transition to a less stressful legal setting.
Absolutely.
There are also ways that you can make your setting or your situation less stressful without even switching jobs. Thanks to the electronic communication, not only lawyers, but a lot of people are thought to be on call 24/7 by their clients. And it's up to us as lawyers maybe not to pick up the email or the phone on the weekends if we want to give ourselves a mental health break so that we're fresh for Monday morning.
Annabel, I know you've counseled many people in getting through all this. So what are some tips and advice you've given them in the past?
Well, number one, I ask when the last time they took a vacation because I'm all for vacations. I think it's important to take a break. Whether you get on a plane or just sit in your backyard, you need a break from the work life. As I said before, you really need to take a break from social media, from the cell phone, from emails. I'm basically off on the weekends because I want to be fresh for the week.
A lawyer is not really like a neurosurgeon where they have to be on call 24 hours a day.
There are times when you have to be, okay, depending on what field of law that you're in. And we do want to be there to provide support. But you're absolutely right that for the most part, in my field of law, there aren't too many urgencies. And so
it's almost like that saying, when you're on an airline, you got to grab the air mask for yourself first before you help someone else. So the lawyer has to take care of themselves first before they can try to help their clients with their challenges.
You're absolutely right. And sometimes the best way to help our clients is by helping ourselves. And, it can be even little things like getting up out of your chair several times a day to do a little stretching and breathing and just change position. If you get cramped and unwell, you're not going to be your best for your clients.
And I think it was also a lot of people are told to do it generally. Just take a little break to experience the outdoors or gardening, take up a hobby, do some volunteer work or pro bono work. Just do something, some distraction, physical and mentally outside the law.
Yeah, I think some of what makes a difference is people will say that when they feel that they have a purpose outside of what they do for a living, that really helps to balance their life a little. There's a little balance.
And some lawyers even switch careers because they feel they'll be more productive or happier. But even if they can't, they might be able to change their field they're working in, their setting. But even while they're doing their difficult legal job, if they can introduce some wellness and support and something they enjoy into the mix, that will help them.
Another suggestion I find myself making a lot lately is let's forget about your to-do list. We all know there are 35 things on there that you're never going to accomplish in a day or even a month. What's on your not-to-do list? And when I bring it up, we all chuckle, but we can come up with things that we can put on our not-to-do list, even just for today. And sometimes that can help us organize better.
What would be an example of that?
Well, if I had some task that I needed to get done, but it wasn't urgent, if I moved that off of my my to-do list onto the not-to-do list, it frees me up for something that has more urgency.
So it could be putting a motion on the not-to-do list, or some book, or some other papers you've got to read, or worrying about something. Just have a worry jar.
I could put also Facebook on the not-to-do list.
Emails,
for just 2 or 3 hours a day. Sometimes just declaring, I'm not going to do this for the next few hours, can really help you also feel like you've taken control back of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you both mentioned before that in lawyers or their families giving them a checkup, one sign could be if there's relationship problems with their families, with their friends. What can a friend do about that? Should they bring it to the attention of the lawyer or someone like yourself?
I mean, I think mostly you have to do something, right? And I think it's when we do something, even if we have somebody come back in an upset way at us, or they feel like they're defensive, you've kind of planted a seed. You've kind of given somebody an opportunity to say, wait, people are seeing this, people understand, people care.
And you welcome outreach from those people to contact you to try to get the lawyer, their client, their parent, their child into a better place.
Absolutely. We often spend way more time with our colleagues than we do with our own family members, so we are in an opportunity to help.
And the lawyer or law student might be taking more drugs or drinking more than usual or than in the past, kind of as a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
So it's one thing they should be aware of as well as the people around them.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Beth.
No, the other thing I was going to say that is very important is, sometimes people think it's a joke when a person says, oh, I'm going to kill myself. And sometimes we hear someone say that and they really don't mean it. But look carefully at that person. Have they been exhibiting some joy in their life? Do they have some worthy purpose in their life? If not, when in doubt, take that seriously as a cry for help.
And also, have they changed their routine? Are they taking time to relax or take a break or at least get some decent sleep?
Are they giving things away? Sometimes that's a sign that they really do have an intention to suicide.
And again, Beth, you provide intervention and support.
Absolutely. We provide peer support. We provide treatment assessment. There's diversion. There's outreach and education. And
even it's an addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs, you have various resources that you can connect them to.
Absolutely.
And what about vicarious trauma? Maybe you can, in the workplace or beyond, just explain what that concept is and how it affects lawyers.
So certain lawyers are more likely to experience vicarious trauma than others. And vicarious trauma basically is kind of a shift in your worldview and comes with some apathy. Because if let's say you're an immigration lawyer or you're working in an organization where many of your clients are not having their basic needs met, or there's domestic violence, there's several family court, there's several different settings, but most lawyers are dealing with trauma to begin with in their clients. And then when we hear these stories over and over again, we begin to experience burnout. And then oftentimes as a way of coping with that, we start to become numb and apathetic. And of course, if you're apathetic, you can't really be of good service to your clients who need you to be aware and on.
So what are some ways that a lawyer, a colleague, a family member can recognize that?
So if you see that your loved one is coming home and either sleeping more, isolating, working more, because often people who work in environments where there's vicarious trauma, it really only is their colleagues that understand. So they don't want to come home and speak to their family members because they have limited time with them, and they don't feel understood by it. And in fact, they probably aren't understood by by loved ones for what it means to work in an environment like that. So if they're home and isolating, or they're working more than they normally do, those are things to look for. In terms of addressing it with them, I think really not being judgmental is really important, and also saying, this is what I'm seeing, so that they can begin to ask themselves, okay, it's true, I am isolating. It is hard for me to come home and be happy with my family when I feel more comfortable with my colleagues, because I know that they understand what I'm feeling.
So they almost have to vent with their colleagues if they can, perhaps through a committee at the Bar Association or other support people at their organization. Well, because lawyers, I mean, many times you cannot, a lawyer is sort of a problem solver, but people can have all kinds of problems that the legal system and an attorney cannot solve.
Well, we know in places like Nassau Suffolk Law Services, the lawyers there are really dealing with cases for which they literally cannot help. I mean, they can provide assistance, but there are times where in the same day that they're working with someone, they cannot provide even basic needs for their clients, and they have to deal with that. I think it's what's more important there is what we can do in outreach and education to speak to organizations on how they can create protocols and procedures within the workforce so that they can mitigate that and prevent that from happening. And there are ways to do that. There's ways to diversify caseloads, make sure you're not putting too much on one person, have support groups.
Annabelle, is there something you wanted to add to that?
Well, what I was going to say is that, we've been talking a lot about how vicarious trauma and other things can manifest in the lawyer with alcoholism or drug abuse, but there are a lot of different very serious mental health issues. And we mentioned depression also, but there's a gambling addiction. When people just don't know where to turn, what to do, are underemployed, they can gamble, they can reach into escrow accounts and get themselves immediately disbarred. There are sex addictions, there's debting, there's over shopping, there's anorexia. Beth, if you call, will send the appropriate candidates to anger management or to other programs who can specifically help with some of these other problems. So if you see somebody, you don't understand why they don't have any money at all, there could be an underlying addiction underneath that.
Or a mental health issue like bipolar, where they could be having a manic episode, which happens often.
And again, as you mentioned earlier, lawyers can get overwhelmed for any of those reasons that you mentioned. But there is help for them and resources available to support them and try to extricate them from that situation.
Not only is there help available, but it's free, it's confidential, and there's absolutely no judgment.
Okay, and in a moment we'll give the contact information. I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. If you missed any portion of this program or our prior program about lawyer wellness, just go to nccradio.org. And, of course, you're welcome to tell other people about the podcast. And the services that Beth and Annabelle are describing are available throughout bar associations throughout New York State and around the country, because we realize it's such a big problem and challenge for lawyers, and people like Beth and Annabelle are here to help them without charge. We just have limited time, but Beth, what other message would you like to give to lawyers, their families, employers out there?
I mean, I think it's really that you're not alone, and that you should, when in doubt, it's better to reach out. Ask questions.
And that's a very good slogan. When in doubt, reach
out.
But it's very true and very important.
It is true. And don't be afraid to, if you're uncomfortable interacting and sharing your concerns with someone, we can do that for you. We can take the burden off of you. So don't hesitate to say something.
And Annabelle, you have the lawyer perspective, and you have had a lot of great ideas. What are some other thoughts that you have?
So I was going to also say you're not alone, but critical skills. Pause. Whatever it is, whether you're angry, sad, frustrated, overwhelmed, pause before you respond or react and slow down. The bigger a hurry you think you're in, the more critical it is, I believe, to slow down.
And Beth, just give your contact information and the confidential information and resources and free resources available to lawyers or people in connection with them.
So again, my name is Beth Eckhardt, Director of the Lawyer Assistance Program at the Nassau County Bar Association. I can be reached, and the program can be reached at 516-512-2618. We can also be reached through our website, which is lap@nassaubar.org. And our services extend themselves to lawyers, judges, law students, the family members, members of the legal staff, and faculty in different environments. And any one of you can reach out to me directly, and we will make sure that we find a way to help.
And anyone in the lawyer universe, including clients, can reach out if they're concerned about something. And as you mentioned before, if there's problems with case files or court appearances, through an intervention, there may be some kind of help you can give them. Go ahead.
So we understand that stress and overwhelm can cause us to neglect our clients, neglect our paperwork. There are mitigating factors for why lawyers sometimes find themselves in ethically difficult situations. And our goal is to focus less on the unethical behaviors and more on how a lawyer got there, so that we can hopefully prevent them from having to undergo discipline, but also educate people so that we can prevent that.
And you may have resources to help the client get to a better place too, and have more resources for them. Annabel, a final word, if very briefly.
Helping the lawyer helps the clients.
Okay. And helps the legal system as well.
And helps the legal system as well, and helps to instill a confidence in the legal profession. There are so many lawyers' jokes out there that sometimes we have to really work harder to encourage people to realize that lawyers really, most of the time, do a great job and have high ethics. And
it's a challenging profession. But yes, the bottom line is help is out there at lap@nassaubar.org or 516-512-2618. And if you missed any part of the program, or you want to tell someone else about it or listen to it again, just go to the website at nccradio.org. And thank you for listening to Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York.